Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Profit Minds podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Stephen Kirch, creator of the Profit Minds Growth System, a unique blend of profit growth, productivity acceleration, and building robust business process for scale. In every episode, I interview entrepreneurs and small business owners from around the world with a unique story to tell. You can find the show on YouTube, LinkedIn, Apple and Google Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, and more. Well, hello, everyone. Today, my guest is Austin Davis, CEO and founder of Clearfork Academy. And today we're going to be talking about the hidden costs of teen substance abuse, how it impacts business professionals, both financially and emotionally. Welcome, Austin.
Hey, thanks for having me, Steve. Really happy to be here.
Yeah. So, as you know, start every episode with, tell me your story. How did you come to found, I guess is the proper way of saying this, the Clearfork Academy?
Yeah, so we use Clearfork as sort of an illustration, right, of like we're standing at this crossroads of life. And so there's a couple for me. One was like coming to Christ at 15, was just like a totally different lifestyle and concept for me. Second was I'd followed and pursued a youth pastor career, did an undergrad in pastoral ministries and went through seminary. And I'm working with kids as a youth pastor. And, when a thing happens in the family, we're not exegeting out of Romans and reading that. I'm asking questions. Really? I'm asking questions to the family, to the kid, like, how did we get here? And so I was really recalling on all my electives and counseling classes. And so I had this kind of aha moment or clear fork that said, man, I really like this. I'm good at this. And so went back and got my master's in counseling, started working in psych hospitals and treatment facilities. And one of the facilities I was working with was adult men and 30, 40, 50-year-olds sitting there, inevitably talking about their 12-year-old, 13-year-old, 14-year-old self, right? So we're doing process groups. And so I have this sort of entrepreneurial seizure again and go, oh my gosh, like I've got this youth pastor calling and I've got this clinical now career. Can I smash those two things together and hopefully abate the 30, 40, and 50-year-olds sitting in rooms because they were in my facility at 12, actually dealing with the stuff that's troubled them later in life. So that's kind of the 40,000 foot view of that journey.
Yeah, and I love the clear fork analogy, right? That you can take a path this way or this way. There's a fork in the road. I'm reminded of the Muppet movie, and there's a fork in the road, but we don't have to go there.
Yes.
That you have choices. We all have choices.
Absolutely, right? every single day.
And I gather what you're trying to do is to help those kids choose the better path. What does that process look like?
Well, one of the techniques I'm trained in is cognitive behavioral therapy, right? CBT, widely used, widely known, but it literally kind of takes that metaphor and puts it into practice. And so a kid walks through our doors and I'm dumb, I'm fat, I'm stupid, I'm ugly, I'll never be anything, my parents hate me, all cops are pigs, like whatever the negative thoughts are. And cognitive behavioral therapy focuses on reframing those and really looking at how do those new belief statements change the way I act. And so we take that and just layer that through several other modalities and our kids get better.
Yeah, I'm the thing that jumps to mind is the book, Dan Sullivan, Ben Hardy book.
There's several of them.
Yes. But it's about, how to judge yourself not based on, where you're headed or your goal.
The gap
right?
in the gain.
The gap in the gain. Yeah. Thank you.
Yes.
And these kids are measuring themselves against some sort of ideal, right? This is a problem that entrepreneurs have. We measure ourselves against some sort of ideal and measure how far away from that we are, as opposed to how far we've come and how much we've grown and how much we've learned since we were, this is a 12-year-old, since you were 10. How much did you learn? How much have you changed? How much have you grown?
Yeah. Those are my favorite families to work with, is because, 14-year-old kid sees dad making, X $1 million a year and goes, I can never do that. I'm not good enough. So why not be an idiot, right? Why not just spend as much money and time as I can? And right, there just becomes a maladaptive pattern of thinking and behavior that is a self-fulfilling prophecy for that kiddo.
Of course it is. And the other piece of it, I'm sure that you do some of this in groups where the kids get to understand that they are not the only kid that's struggling in those areas, right? That
groups and families, right? And so it's a lot of families feel isolated and siloed, and we put them in a group, and they're like, I've had that conversation 45 times this month, and so that again, you surround yourself with like-minded people, and that's how you find success or healing through some of those things.
Yeah. And again, I'm sorry, I'm doing this again with the entrepreneur, right? The entrepreneurs think I'm all alone. Nobody's ever experienced this before. No, for most of us, the journey's pretty similar.
Yeah.
So talk to us about how are these things impacting business professionals financially and emotionally? What's the
the first thing we all think of as business professional, I think is like the P&L or the profits, right? So it's depending on if they're self-funded insurance plans or they're big enough to have one of the major providers in insurance. And so we see a wide variety of solopreneurs or private equity or public companies. I mean, so it's all across the board. So number one, I think there's a financial strain because, what we do is expensive. Doctors, nurse practitioners, nurses, therapists, 24-hour care, you name it. And so I think initially, right, it's a pocketbook thing. Secondly, it could be a pride thing, because as entrepreneurs, we solve problems. And when our own flesh and blood won't do what we tell it to do, is a thing, and I work with a lot of dads and moms, getting them to understand that, sometimes it takes a consultant to come into your business to tell your executive team the same thing you've been telling them for 5 years. And all of a sudden they go, oh my gosh, I finally get it because that consultant told me. And it's the same concept. I've sat with a kid and a dad, and I'm like, okay, Johnny, you should probably tie your shoes every time you leave the house. And the kid looks at me and goes, you are absolutely right. Oh my gosh, I'm going to start doing that tomorrow. And the dad looks at me like, you jerk. I have told that kid since he was 1 year old to tie his shoes, but it's just a different voice. And it, I think it's a pride thing for families, and they drill down and they drill down and they drill down, and they can't help their kid anymore until it's too late.
Yeah, it is interesting. And I love the analogy of the consultant, right? And very often parents, right? Our kids don't listen to us, but another parent or some outside influence telling them the same thing, all of a sudden it becomes a great idea. I think it was it Mark Twain that when he left home, his dad was really stupid. He came back home and he realized how much his dad had learned while he was gone. Right.
Yeah.
It's that kind of thing, because again, we're with this person all the time. We know that they have flaws. We know our parents are not perfect people. So when they suggest stuff, particularly because we're trying since we're 2 years old to assert our independence. If we start doing what our parents tell us, then we're, not independent thinkers anymore, even
Right.
though, again, well, but if you decide to do it, then it is your decision. Where the idea came from is irrelevant, but
Mhm.
but we very often can't see that in ourselves.
Yep, absolutely.
Right. Yeah. So talk to me about some of the workplace support systems that you have with Clearfork. What does that look like?
For our employees, how we build.
Well, either for your employees or for your patients. Do you have support systems for the parents outside of what you're doing with the kids?
Yeah, so I mean, we have a whole team of folks, right? We have therapists who are doing individual therapy weekly, group therapy twice a day. All of our support staff. I got 12 kids on the lake right now. So they're enjoying the boat and the sunshine in Texas. So there's a wide array of daily activities, both clinical, educational. We've got principal and teachers. So we have our own charter school in house. So they're unplugging from their local school, plugging into ours, and then hopefully returning back to their educational system out in the world. We do a family call every Tuesday. Our alumni team spearheads that, and so past, present, and future families just have a support call, and it's really that just emotional brain dump thing of support they do weekly. We've got a couple thousand alumni that we track every week, every month, every year, whether it's a phone call, a text, or an email. We do quarterly events. We did Six Flags and Top Golf already this year for them. So yeah, we're always, it's a community for us. It's Hotel California. We laugh and you can come in, but you can never leave. And, so you're part of the family.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's a live-in facility. Are all the kids that you treat,
Yeah. So we have
residents or
4 facilities. We started out residential only with boys. Then we did a residential only for girls. Those are about 75 miles apart on purpose. And then we have 2 outpatient locations, just kind of all surrounding the Dallas-Fort Worth area. So outpatient locations are co-ed, and we serve both, mental health primary and substance use disorders.
All right. So let's go back to the entrepreneurial journey here for the business owner journey for if your kids are suffering in this way. How do you figure it out?
Well, I think it goes back to almost to that consultant mindset is, when our company was $1 million in revenue, I thought I was amazing, right? When it was $3 million in revenue, I was kind of like, there's some things that break down, right? And as the business kind of continues to grow, I'm a therapist and a youth pastor. I'm not a CFO. I just know that I can run spreadsheets. I can look at spreadsheets, but as the business became smarter than me or bigger, its needs became bigger than me, I had to look for outside help and surround myself with people who were smarter. And so I think parenting is the same way. I had dinner with a couple that we've been meeting with for a little over a year. We watched them date, we watched them get married, and now they're about to have their first kid. And at all these kind of points in their life, they ask us as the old people, what's it going to be like? What do we do when? What do we do this? Did you set up college fund, day one, or like those sort of things? And so I think when you have a kiddo in crisis, you're either equipped or you're not. And you can, as a business owner, dig into a problem and beat it to death and never get anything out of it. When you just call your friend or somebody and say, hey, have you figured this out? And they're like, 4 minutes, they send you the email or the link, and you're like, oh my God, I should have done that 6 weeks ago. Right. So I think it's the same way with parenting.
Yeah, having additional, parents that and that was invaluable to us as we were raising our kids. Having other parents that were struggling with the same kinds of things. Are there things that parents should look for in terms of their kids if they're worried about their kids and substance abuse? I know that teen suicide is way up over the last several years. A piece of that's the pandemic, but a piece of that is just the way our society is headed in a lot of ways.
People, places, and things, right? So people, number one, we treat a lot of athletes who have budding careers or golf prodigies or pitchers, things like that. So like there's a certain community that those kids have, and as they begin to distance themselves from that community, you better turn and look and go, why? Right? Are they changing the people that they're hanging out with? And how is that leading to behavior? Places, right? That kind of follows the people. At 12, I have 3 kiddos, 8, 10, and 12. Every night, we're hopeful every night that we sit around the table. And a lot of things that we hear is Johnny grabs his plate and goes upstairs. So places have changed. He no longer wants to sit at the table. He's going to sit upstairs and eat his food. Places that you're not supposed to be, like after school or skipping school. So it's tracking them on the iPhone if if the parents want to, right? But you can see objectively when places begin to look erratic. If you were to plot it on a graph, you could probably see, okay, here's trouble, here's not trouble, here's trouble, here's not trouble. And then things, right, is anything from paraphernalia to like who's that car? Like I had one mom call our intake line one time and go, I found a gun in this powder substance and some scales in the back of my car, but I don't think my kid's dealing drugs. And so just psychoeducation with that mom was she couldn't fathom that was her kid in her socioeconomic status, her neighborhood, and her, European vehicle.
Yeah. Are there things that parents can do earlier on before the kid gets to 12, 13, 14, that would be helpful in terms of trying to prevent this kind of path?
Yes. And it's always, but the phrase I grew up with is an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure.
Sure.
Right. And so I'm a therapist. My wife is an educator. She taught, K4 for a decade. And so we know to kind of start early. And part of that is, we call it motivational interviewing. That's kind of the technique or whatever, but asking Socratic questions to our kids. You pick them up from daycare at 5 instead of, how was your day? Well, their reply is going to be good. You're going to get yes or no answers, right? So learning to ask questions that lead to a dialogue and not just a statement or a word. What was one thing in your day that made you proud? And so now that's a whole narrative, right?
Right.
And having your kids, not just getting the information and data back from them, but having that teaches them to ask better questions about life as well. So I think learning to do that, we see that a lot is families are in this, Twitter or X limitation of their communication skills. It's yes or no, back and forth type of relationship, and so that's very shallow. And so when things get tough for a family, if that's their level of engagement, it's kind of hard to talk about when you got bullied, or when your girlfriend broke up with you because she cheated with her best friend, or you thought about dying today, like just because life is hard, so like when you don't have that kind of foundation built, it's very hard when things actually rubber hits the road.
Yeah, I love that. I think one of the things that we did pretty well with our kids was, we paid attention to them when they, it wasn't, you're going to do this because I said. It was always, if they had an objection to what we were asking them to do, we tried to explore that with them and help them understand. I mean, the only time we were hard and fast was around safety, right? This is a car place, so you hold my hand. There was just no debate, no questioning that. But other stuff, most of the time it didn't matter.
Right.
In the long run, and we respected what they said, and so we pretty much always had an open dialogue with both of our girls growing up.
Yeah.
Because we started that dialogue, as you said, you started that dialogue when they're 3 years old and they've gotten out of daycare, and what was the most fun thing you did today, and like, what it makes you proud, or and enjoying them, watching them grow up.
Yeah,
that's really insightful. So, So, do you have something that you would like to offer to our listeners?
Yeah, just recently I chronicled sort of the last decade of stories of our families and kids, and sort of each chapter overlaid how we would intervene with that with kind of a clinical modality. So it's a little bit of a memoir and a little bit of a psychoeducation book. We call it My Kid, My Crisis, because whether it's a home run or you're picking them up from the hospital, the body doesn't know the difference between those two events. And so, parenting is a crisis all the time. So so we have that for a download. They can get it, at marketing at clearforkacademy.com.
That'll be in the show notes. And if a parent is really struggling, trying to figure out what's going on, is there a way they can reach out? What's the best way for them?
Yeah, certainly. And so like my sort of petition to, I need to take my own advice in business, because I beat my head against every problem and try to figure it out myself, right? Is just don't wait to pick up the phone. And so we've have a team of people who take thousands of calls a month to help parents navigate what is the next step, what is the next resource. And so clearforkacademy.com, there's a number in the top right-hand corner that rings to those folks. So there's no obligation. They'll spend as much time on the phone as you need to help navigate, is it an issue? Is it not an issue? What resources do I need? And where am I in this journey?
Great. And if people want to reach out to you and learn more about the Clearfork Academy, what's the best way to do that?
Yeah, our website's got a ton of information. That marketing at Clearfork Academy will come straight to me. And so we'll get those inquiries and be able to connect and help folks.
Great. And that concludes our show. Thanks again to my guest, Austin Davis, the CEO and founder of Clearfork Academy. I hope you learned something about the hidden costs of teen substance abuse and how it impacts business professionals, both financially and emotionally. I know I did. Thanks for listening. You've been listening to the Profit Minds podcast. This is your host, Dr. Stephen Kirch. Please visit www.profitminds.net for other episodes or to contact me. Thank you for your positive feedback, comments, questions, and for sharing this show with others. Thanks for listening. Have a grateful day.